Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome to the first Kickstarter review of 2022, and I reckon it's going to be a big one. It's a new Japanese micro brand, a bit of a rarity in itself. They're called Namica watches. The two models that I'm going to review are the Shirahama and the Tokyo Neo, though they're essentially different colour versions of the same watch. Now the campaign launches in 7 hours time. It launches tonight. I will of course leave a link in the description of this video to both the campaign and their website so you can get a bit more information on the watches. And as you can see, they already have 1,100 people, more than 1,100 people waiting for notification that the campaign is starting. I cannot remember the last Kickstarter campaign I saw with that many people waiting for those early bird specials. Certainly not from a brand new brand with a brand new watch. Now on one hand, this watch doesn't do anything particularly special. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. On the other hand, the colours they have chosen and the design of the watch are fantastic. Definitely a bit of cyberpunk, definitely a bit of Blade Runner, definitely a bit of Tokyo Neo in there. Now you saw the pop-up, I'm sure. This video is sponsored by Namica watches. As always, don't just take my word for it. There are a couple of other reviews out there. Dave from Just the Watch, he's based in Japan. He takes a couple of these out in their natural environment. And Will from Zaltec Reviews over in Scotland, he pretty much swears for 20 minutes in his review, as only a Scotsman can. Be sure to check that one out as well. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Alright, let's start with a family photo then. That's the Shirahama Classic in the middle, the Tokyo Neo Silver on the right, and the Tokyo Neo Black DLC on the left. Essentially the same watch. Like I said, nothing particularly radical going on here, kind of familiar layout, but really clean design and great colours. So this is the Classic. I think those indices, those white indices look fantastic, kind of floating there on that matte blue dial. Definitely a bit of squally in this one, particularly that orange minute hand. But I suspect most of those 1,100 followers are interested in the Neo Tokyo versions. Check that dial, vertical metallic brush with a fade. It goes from really kind of pinky purple to almost black and back again. Sapphire bezel insert, really striking, black at the top and white at the bottom. All combined with a sandblasted then DLC coated case and bracelet. So let's talk price, because price always helps to add context and it's especially important on Kickstarter. Super early bird for the Shirahama Classic, that's the blue one. They also do a white version of it. $299, drifting up to $350 for the regular Kickstarter price. Now the Neo Tokyo versions, silver starts at $340 up to $390, the DLC black $350 up to $399. Now fairly limited super early birds, only 50 pieces of each, then 100 for the next price, and they definitely have a familiar silhouette, don't they, with that crown down there at 4 o'clock, though I reckon there's a little bit of samurai in here as well, slightly more angular lug, slightly more angular crown guards than you find on the SKX, but they've gone for the middle of the road rather than the 43, 38 and a half. They've gone 40. Well, they've actually gone for 39 if you measure it across the case, but 40mm diameter if you measure it across the bezel. Bang on 14mm thickness, but a relatively compact 46.7mm lug to lug. 20mm lug width. There's a bit of a taper down to 17.5, back up to 21 at the clasp, so the clasp is actually wider than the lug width, and sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, bang on 150 grams, which is pretty much what you'd expect. So 316L stainless steel case, crown, bezel and full stainless bracelet today. It is sandblasted, and in this case it is DLC coated. Double dome sapphire crystal with anti-reflective undercoating, and that is a sapphire bezel insert. Always really nice to see sapphire, and you wait till you see the lume on these three a bit later on. Now it's an interesting effect, sandblasting. You don't see it very often. It almost makes the watch look like it's made of a kind of paler, more vibrant titanium, but it's not. It is in fact stainless steel. So a knurled crown, perhaps another little nod to the samurai there with the Namica logo on it, matching the knurling on the bezel there. They are going to make a couple of changes. The units I've got are prototypes, nothing too fundamental. They're going to sharpen up the machining on those end links so that it matches the lugs better as well. The bracelet's a good one, hexad style. Female mid link of the end link as well helps it wear well. Now another small upgrade. This is pin and collar system. I had no problems adjusting it, but they are going to change to screws for production units. Similarly, they're going to bring that logo somewhere up the middle. Like I said, nothing too fundamental. The watch that you see here is pretty much what you'll be getting. We have a fully milled clasp, which is always nice, and 3 holes of micro adjust. Doesn't sound like a lot, but they are small links, so it is sufficient. And the bezel action is consistent across all 3 of the prototypes that I've got here. 120 click. Everything lines up. No backplay, no bounce at all. Yeah, pretty good for the money. The case back's nice, screw on, also made of stainless steel, and there's some Japanese patterning there. Looks like one of those big kind of wall hanging scrolls. No idea what it says, perhaps some Japanese viewers would be able to enlighten me there. Usual spec sheet around the outer edges, Namica, Shirahama, sapphire crystal, 200 meters of water resistance, 316L stainless steel, and no prizes for guessing what powers this thing. It's a Seiko NH. But at least they chose the NH38, which is the no date specific version. This is a no date watch, of course, so there is no ghost date position when you unscrew the crown. I put all 3 of them in the time grapher and they all came in around the same, +10 to +15 from my experience. And I've got plenty of experience of these Seiko NH movements. That's how they generally run. A little bit fast, but not too fast. 24 joule hacking and hand winding, roughly 40-hour power reserve. We've all seen a million of these in watches ranging from $50 up to about $500. All right, that's the technicalities, that's the boring stuff out of the way. Let's have a look at these things, starting with the classic. Now, the blue one I've got, very minimal branding here. They're actually going to make the automatic script that you can barely see above the index at 6 a little bolder for production units. But really, it's less is more with these ones. They've stripped it right back and they've stripped the colour palette back with this version also. Just blue, white and orange, and I think very, very nice as a consequence. I love those big blocky indices. From an angle you can really see some height to those also. Counterbalance second hand is nice with the white tip, and I'll never say no to a sapphire bezel insert. But my personal favourite is this one. It's the Neo Tokyo with the sandblasted steel case. Perhaps the black DLC is just a little bit too much for me personally. I'm okay with a purple dial and pink hands, but maybe a purple dial, pink hands and an all black case is just taking it too far. Looks great though. And you see what they've done, obviously. They've taken the classic indices, the triangle, 3 batons and circles, but they've made them printed silhouettes. I've never seen that done before. It means you can see even more of that nice metallic brush finish to the dial. The branding's a little bit more noticeable on this one because it's black against the purple, and the colour palette is similarly restricted, but they have added that little bit of baby blue to the tip of the second hand. But I guess there's an argument that if you're going to buy one, you may as well go all in and get the black one as well. It really is a unique look. It's essentially the same as the bead blasted case, but obviously DLC coated. And that really is a cracking shade of purple they've used for the dial. Very dynamic as well because of the fume. If you move this one around a lot, it does go from kind of bright purple through grape down to almost black, really kind of deep dark purple, which is lovely. Now, I did say the lume was good earlier on, and I was not joking. The lume on these things is pretty fantastic. Now, it's the classic on the right that has the best of the lume. They are going to improve the lume for the printed indices on the Neo versions for production units, but I guess having printed rather than applied indices does come at a little bit of a cost inevitably with the lume, so the Neo is never going to look quite as bright as the classic. BGW9, heaps of it. The bottom half of those sapphire bezels is just ridiculous the way it glows. I've got an episode of Lume Wars coming up. I'm going to hang on to the classic one if they allow me to slip it in there next week or so. I wouldn't bet against this one, even though it's a prototype. So let's get them on wrist for a look-see. I've got a 7-inch wrist for your reference. No surprises really in terms of the way this one wears. It's nicely balanced. 40 is a good size. Lug to lug's fairly compact as well. Now 14mm is not slim. I have seen slimmer 200 meter divers using NH powered movements, but the reality of it, once you get it on wrist, you barely notice that extra half a mil. Overhead legibility on the DLC version is pretty good. Have a look at their website. There's actually a couple of different colours of the classic as well. One that is white with black surrounded hands and black surrounded indices. That's probably going to be the most legible of all if that's important to you. Outside in natural light, I'll give you a couple of seconds of each of the 3 different colour versions. Again, you can see just how dynamic that grape dial, that purple dial is in natural light when I move the watch around. Now, double dome sapphire certainly helps with legibility, but an extra couple of layers of anti-reflective undercoating would not have gone amiss, I don't think. And that obviously applies to all three of the colour versions. And on wrist, yeah, nice and comfortable. If you have ever worn an SKX, then yeah, this watch will have a certain degree of familiarity about it. Let's put it that way. And the pocket shot to finish, it's a nice comfortable watch, nice size, nice shape, nice weight. Nice interaction between the sapphire crystal and the sapphire bezel insert is particularly noticeable on the black model, I think. But let's get on to the moans and niggles. I've got a 7-inch wrist. I only had to remove 3 links and I'm on the middle of the 3 micro adjust holes. That suggests that if you have an 8-inch wrist or larger, you're going to be struggling to fit the bracelet. So if you do have an 8-inch wrist or larger and you fancy pledging for one of these, I would ask for clarification if that's your lot or if they're going to include a couple of extra links for production models. And while we're on the bracelet, nice small hex-shaped links they may be, but I did find that occasionally they got stuck. Not quite enough gap between them or not quite enough rounded edges. And then of course there are a couple of the inherent issues that are ever present in all Kickstarter campaigns. Those being that they take your money today and there's always a slight risk that the project goes down the pan and you lose your cash. Doesn't happen very often, but it has happened in the past. And of course you pay your money today, but you don't get your watch for a number of months. So if you're the type of person that requires instant gratification, Kickstarter in general is not going to be for you. And while we're talking about instant gratification, this isn't the only SKX style watch on the market. Mark from Long Island sells a range of this style of watch, including one in black DLC, similar specs, similar prices, all available to purchase now. You're not going to be waiting months. But they don't look quite like this, do they? I like this design. It's really clean. Definitely a case of less is more, and that dial patterning and the dial colouring is unique. I have not seen this anywhere else. So if you are one of the 1,104 people currently signed up for the alert for this one, I will be setting an alarm 10 minutes before this one kicks off, just in case. So there you have it. Well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you want a little bit of Tokyo street style, why not check out the Seiko Ginza, or if you like this SKX silhouette, why not check out my original review back in the day. Thanks for watching. See you soon.